Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted. From Packers.com, I am Mike Spofford. He is the one and only Wes Hodkiewicz. We're coming to you here from our studios at Lambeau Field. This will be our season wrap-up episode. We're going to go on a bit of a hiatus from Packers Unscripted after this. Wes has some vacation to take. I have some vacation to take. Who knows when we'll be back? We will be back. But when I'm not sure.
I was going to say, we'll see if Lowry gets in the Hall of Fame or not.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, then probably about 48 minutes after the announcement's made, we'll be doing an episode of Packers Unscripted.
Wes is going to drag me in here because we're going to have to talk about it. But yes, off-season episodes between now and the draft might just be very much news-driven, might be based on when Wes and I are both happen to be in the office at the same time. That aside, though, I do want to start this episode with a hearty congratulations and a big-time shout-out to now former Packers offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett. He has landed the head coaching job of the Denver Broncos. This is a tremendous career achievement for somebody that everyone in this building was rooting for him. If this is what he wanted, you wanted him to get it and get this opportunity. Just a great guy. I wish he could have been around Green Bay longer than 3 years. He's been really fun to talk to and get to know. But congratulations to Coach Hackett.
Congratulations to Nathaniel. Unfortunately, he's been behind the Zoom wall here for 2 years for the most of it. But a guy that when you'd see him in the press box, you always have a good smile for you, always have a nice hello, very personable. I made the comment, Mike, at the end of the season, when I was thinking originally maybe he'd be a candidate for Jacksonville, I had tweeted out something along the lines of, if you want to change your culture, if you want to, infuse some positivity in your locker room, Nathaniel Hackett's your guy.
Well, and it sounded like he was potentially on his way for a second interview in Jacksonville, and the Denver Broncos didn't let him leave town. They dropped a contract in front of him and said you're our guy. So let's go. There are obviously some implications here. This is going to fuel, rumors and speculation regarding Aaron Rodgers and all that. I'm not going to get into it. We will see what happens. With regard to the Packers staff, Matt LaFleur had mentioned on Monday, he's got a plan in place, obviously. His plan is to promote from within for offensive coordinator. Presumably, his top candidates there are Luke Getsy and Adam Stenavich, Getsy being quarterback coach and passing game coordinator, Stenavich being offensive line coach and run game coordinator. But then another potential wrinkle here is you don't know if Coach Hackett might potentially want to take one of those guys with him to Denver to be his offensive coordinator. So we'll have to see what happens here. But Matt LaFleur's plan is to promote from within at offensive coordinator to replace Nathaniel.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I want to make this abundantly clear because I made this case in the inbox too. In regards to Devondre Campbell and Rasul Douglas, two guys that the Packers would love to have back for 2022, but have incredibly raised their stock here over the last few months.
Just a bit.
Whether or not the Packers can bring back Campbell or Douglas, whether or not, well, obviously Hack will be moving on to a new opportunity, that has positive implications for the Packers franchise, for this team, and certainly for Matt LaFleur. I think one thing, especially as organizations, you fall into this pit where you want to continue to be the status quo because you fear what it means to lose a player, what it means to lose a coach. When in reality, by Nathaniel Hackett moving on, it creates opportunities for guys on this roster who are also deserving of those opportunities. What I love the most about Hackett's story, though, Mike, it's not like when Matt LaFleur hired him in 2019, Hackett was this huge, stud, everyone's just raving about him as offensive coordinator. This is a great hire. There were a lot of questions about him because of how things ended in Jacksonville.
Yeah, he'd been run out of town, basically.
And as I kind of said a few weeks ago, I think as time has passed, his tenure as the offensive coordinator as the Jacksonville Jaguars has really, really looked better and better. What he was able to do, what they were able to accomplish. And while he was sort of unceremoniously, let go during a time in which, that happens to coaches where they have to make these decisions, for him to get this opportunity and to become such a beloved coach, get the Packers with the gold zone, setting franchise records for productivity last year, being able to kind of rebound here the second half of this season. He had a lot to do with what Green Bay was able to build offensively. So, yes, you hate to see coaches go, you hate to see talented players go, but people around the league are going to notice that, Mike. When Matt LaFleur inevitably starts hiring guys again after all the dust settles, coaches are going to want to come to Green Bay. When free agents that maybe are looking for an opportunity because they felt like they got the raw end of the stick, like Campbell, like Douglas, like Dennis Kelly, they're going to notice what those players did in Green Bay. Yeah. The overall byproduct of that is really important because you're not going to be able to pay everybody $10 million a year. But if people understand that there's an opportunity to grow and enhance and improve in this environment, they're going to want to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the other thing that I want to focus this show on before at the end we will talk about the upcoming conference championship games and get some thoughts there.
If we have to.
I came up with a few categories, sort of to recap this 2021 season for the Packers. Now, in the spirit of Unscripted, I haven't told Wes what the categories are.
Feels like
I've had the advantage to do a little bit of thinking to make my choices here, but he gets the advantage of going first. So if he picks what I want, I have to come up with something else. But we'll start with this, Wes. The best moment of the 2021 season for the Packers.
Is Marv gonna play like the Jeopardy music over the top?
I don't know. That's up to him in the when he gets doing the final production.
10 seconds for me to write on my monitor, and then we show everybody what I picked. The best moment of the 2021 season. There's a few of them, but I'm going to try to give you one. To me, I think a lot of it is that win over the Minnesota Vikings, because that was what got them the bye. That's what got them. They clinched the division. And Rodgers giving that speech to the guys about enjoying this moment, that's something I've kind of talked to people about a lot this season. The other answer I kind of wanted to use there was Rodgers just reporting for training camp. I felt like that was a big moment.
Certainly valid.
But it was the appreciation of what you're accomplishing in the moment of what you're accomplishing it. I understand this is a disappointing week. You heard me talk on Tuesday. It's a disappointing, to fall short of the ultimate goal. But this ride is so long. There's so many days in a year. There's so much legacy involved in these things that if you boil it down to just winning or losing a Super Bowl, it's going to be difficult to put all your chips in that basket, even if you win the darn thing. I appreciate that Rodgers said that to the team that day. I appreciated what it meant for him to come back, for him to have the success he did. He was a PFWA MVP of the year, MVP. Likely will be the AP one as well. We'll find out shortly. But what Rodgers brought to this team and being able to have that moment with the roster, the huddle before they knelt down, I felt like that was a pretty big catalyst to what they did.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good choice.
Capstone is what I was looking for, by the way.
What's that?
I was looking for capstone, not catalyst. Yeah. Was the word.
My pick is the Rasul Douglas interception in Arizona.
It was up there too.
That was for me. That was we for the second straight year because of COVID protocols, restrictions on the team charter and whatnot, you and I did not travel to the road games. That Rasul Douglas interception in the end zone to win the game against Arizona when the Cardinals were undefeated. It was a Thursday night game on the road, traveling multiple time zones. The Packers were devastated by injury. They were down several players on both sides of the ball. That was a jump out of your chair moment.
Yep.
As far as this 2021 season went, not only to win that game, but the player that was Rasul Douglas having been on the practice squad for Arizona. The fact that the Packers had played such an incredible game shorthanded and had a chance to put it away in a goal-to-go situation on the 1-yard line, failed to get the clinching points, and then as Kyler Murray was taking the Cardinals the other way down the field, you just felt like, oh my gosh, this one's going to slip away. It's going to slip away. And Rasul Douglas makes the interception on the pass to A.J. Green. So that was my top moment of the season.
The Cardinals never recovered. That was basically the turning point of their season.
It absolutely was the turning point of their season. There's no question about it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to kind of note those at times because while it was such a high moment for Green Bay, it shows you the way this league goes and how teams go up, teams go down, and it is about that consistency in between.
Yeah, no question about it. Favorite touchdown?
Favorite touchdown? Oh, man, there are so many. The Lazard one, the leaping Lazard one was one I'm probably going to remember for a while. The opponent's escaping me now, though.
Was that the Minnesota game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one where he goes up and came down with it on his
sort
back.
Of on the side of the end zone there. Yeah.
He looked like Megatron on that play. And there's so many different ones you could pick, though, Mike. I mean, Devontae had a handful of them the second half of the season.
Yeah.
The Lazard one is the one that stands out to me, though, because that was at a time in which the Packers really needed somebody else to step up. They were still trying to find themselves without Randall Cobb. You knew it was Devontae Adams, but who's going to be that secondary playmaker? And Lazard to have, whatever it was, 5 touchdowns in the last X amount of games.
Yeah,
I mean, he really came on strong for that roster.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a different choice. I don't want to discount the Aaron Rodgers breaking Brett Favre's record, that touchdown pass to Lazard, but that is actually not my pick. For me, I actually go all the way back to week 2, if you remember the home game against the Detroit Lions, and the threaded ball down the middle seam to Tunyon for that touchdown at the goal line.
Yeah.
Alex Anzalone, I believe, is how you pronounce the name. He was the linebacker in coverage on Tunyon, had his back to the play. Rodgers fired it, as you just said, right past his ear hole for the touchdown. And this is in week 2, coming off of when all of whatever was getting thrown wherever with regard to that Packers week 1 performance against the Saints. And Aaron Rodgers threw that touchdown pass. I thought it was maybe his most impressive throw, certainly one of his most impressive throws of the season. That's one that just the visual of that from the Lambeau Field press box and how we saw it, the visual of that just sticks in my mind. I absolutely love that play.
You got that one right. That is absolutely.
Well, there aren't any right and wrong answers here, Wes,
no, because it was the most.
But I've
impressive.
had the advantage of thinking about these.
Yeah, it was funny. I kind of had forgotten about this. As soon as you said week 2, I'm like, oh, I know where he's going with this. And I'll tell you what.
But no, I'm putting you on the spot. I didn't even give you the categories in advance, so I'm putting you on the spot.
But Tunyon, man, losing him the second half of the season, they did a good job of sort of stemming the tide for the most part. But man, oh life, you saw what Kittle did.
Replacing a guy who had double-digit touchdowns the previous season, and he wasn't having that type of statistical year, but there was still plenty of time left in the season that you felt like that he could catch fire at any time, and then unfortunately the injury, and he didn't have that opportunity.
And just look at what Lazard did. Lazard was off to a pretty quiet start the first couple months, and he ended up being their second biggest playmaker down the stretch. Yeah, that's a tough one.
All right, number 3, biggest surprise player.
Oh man, I was kind of figuring you were gonna say this, and then I was figuring out, okay, do I say Douglas or do I say Campbell?
I've really put you on the spot here today.
For the sake of not being overly long-winded, I'm actually going to look towards the players that were here already. If you want to talk about either of those guys, I'm going to welcome you to doing that. We obviously already discussed that huge play that Douglas had in Arizona.
Yeah.
The biggest surprise player for me, though, this season, I'm actually going to give that credit to Eric Stokes. Because this is a guy, I wish we could go back to training camp. We never, these are the things like you wish when we had the locker room access, you could just like ask Devontae about Stokes, like just one-on-one, not just one quick quote, like actually like get some detail there. Because, Mike, there's no cameras at training camp. We don't see these team periods. That film does not live in the public domain. But Rodgers and Adams were targeting that young man a lot.
They went after him.
And
that was intentional on the part of the coaching staff to test Eric Stokes, this young first-round draft pick, right out of the box in training camp. All right, best quarterback, best receiver, you got to go and stop him on a daily basis. And he took his lumps, but he battled his butt off, too.
In the first 2 weeks of the season, remember we did some unscripted. I remember I wrote some inboxes. I said, listen, whether it was Casey Hayward, whether it was Micah Hyde, whether it was Jair, these young rookies, man, they play right away. When you have 6 defensive backs on the field most of the time, at least for half the game, these young guys are going to get out there. Stokes had to get thrown into the fire against San Francisco when Kevin King was a scratch during warm-ups, right? Or maybe it was whatever week that was. For that guy to play as many snaps as he did and look as good as he did and not be a liability at any point this season, I just think that speaks so well of him. He has so many natural God-given talents, that his speed, his ranginess, his length.
His athletic ability is just off the charts. So you can see why he was picked in the first round.
And the guy didn't even have to lean on it that much this year. He was able to actually play. Like so many times when Sam Shields was younger, he had to really lean on those skills while the rest of his game caught up.
But there's the difference between an undrafted guy
And a
like Sam
first-round pick.
Shields and a first-round pick like Eric Stokes.
And a guy that was playing receiver at Miami and a guy that was playing quarterback.
I like that.
at Georgia.
I like that pick. I was fully prepared for you to say either Devondre Campbell or Rasul Douglas, and I was just going to pick the other one. But no, definitely Campbell and Douglas are the two guys that jump out the most to me. Campbell because he didn't show up until June when the offseason program was almost over, and then essentially became the signal caller, the leader, the guy in the middle of everything in Joe Barry's defense for, his first year as a coordinator here. And as we talked about, just he changed the look, the feel, the way this defense played. You can't give him enough credit. And then to do what he did and earn first team All-Pro on top of it, very impressive. I would probably say Douglas was an even bigger surprise.
Oh, 100%.
Because of coming off of another team's practice squad. When Jair Alexander went down, I mean, you know how I like to talk about things, Wes. Your premier positions are passer, pass protector, as in left tackle, pass rusher, edge rusher, and pass defender, your cornerbacks. When Jair Alexander went down, the Packers didn't have a ton of depth at cornerback. You were looking at that as a potentially huge loss. They plucked Douglas off of Arizona's practice squad. He's here for a week or so. He's thrown in Chicago after the opening series of the game when Justin Fields took the Bears right down the field for a touchdown. Douglas comes off the bench and gets thrown in there and basically didn't come off the field the rest of the season. And then, of course, you all know the pick in Arizona, a couple of pick sixes in back-to-back games at Lambeau Field, the 2 interceptions on Christmas Day, including the clincher against Baker Mayfield there to win the game against the Browns. This is as much, and he ends up getting Pro Bowl alternate status based on all of that when this is a guy who started the season and wasn't even on an active roster and had bounced around between 3 or 4 other teams just trying to land a job. His story this year was absolutely remarkable.
I remember Washington, the first Packers home game where this guy's active. And I remember watching that game and watching how he collapsed on the ball and how hard he played. And I said, this guy's different. It wasn't even about the interceptions. It wasn't about, making big plays or touchdowns or anything like that. Just the way he had a relentless pursuit to the football. I'm like, this guy's 6'2", he's 208 pounds. He was a 3rd-round pick 3 years ago. Why was he on the practice squad for the Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah.
And I last time I'm going to say this because who knows? We'll see what happens. This might be the last time we talk about Douglas until free agency. The Cardinals keep getting ripped for Douglas. The Cardinals deserve you can't shame them at all for what they did.
No.
The Packers had a bunch of veterans that they had signed to their practice squad. It's what you do in this league.
Yeah.
It was week 1 of the regular season. The Houston Texans are the ones that cut this guy loose after a week. They didn't even give him a chance to really prove himself. Arizona put him on the practice squad. Maybe he stayed there too long, but I give them credit for giving him an opportunity. But this guy to pick up this playbook as quickly as he did and to make himself a contributor by the end of the month October, that is why he's the biggest surprise. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, and the stories of Campbell and Douglas both go to show in this league how the old adage of opportunity and environment and timing and all of that, how it can make such a difference. Because with Campbell, we had talked about how, he got a chance to be Batman instead of Robin, right? And Joe Barry's scheme seemed to be just absolutely the perfect fit for him. He walked right into a perfect situation, and he seized it. He completely took advantage of it. Rasul Douglas, again, it was opportunity. Rasul Douglas is never putting on a Packers uniform if Jair Alexander plays the entire season. He would never have been here. So it was an opportunity, but then he comes here. He sort of, hitches his wagon, so to speak, to Jerry Gray and learns a lot more about how to watch film and prepare, and he becomes a film junkie. All the stories we heard about, 7, 8 o'clock at night in the team cafeteria after everybody's gone home, and he's got his iPad there looking at film. The coaches would see that. So environment, opportunity, all of that, those two guys are great examples.
And I just want to make this point too quickly. Campbell, I hope the NFL has taken, like free agents have taken notice of what Devondre Campbell did, because there's such a emphasis on, okay, I either get cut or I get let go. This league new year starts on March 17th. I got to sign as soon as I can or I'm going to look like nobody wants me.
Yeah.
Campbell wasn't afraid of that, man. He said, you know what, if I got to take this thing into June before signing with the team, I'm going to do it.
He was going to find the right opportunity for himself.
Yes.
Yep.
Because I think I didn't get he didn't say this directly, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it almost did kind of feel like when he left Atlanta, it was like, well, Arizona was the best opportunity in terms of money, in terms of everything. I'm going to go there, and it wasn't the right fit for him.
Yeah.
This situation, he waited it out. He was cerebral about it. And now he's going to make a pretty good payday, whether it's here or it's somewhere else in the league.
Absolutely.
Not enough players do that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Next one, unsung hero. You can take this any direction you want.
You know, I'm going to say this because I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for what he did this year as Lucas Patrick. The Green Bay Packers.
That was one of the names at the top of my list, too.
They used a second-round draft pick on Josh Myers, and rightfully so. You look at this kid, Mike, he's a Mack truck.
Yeah.
Like, he has everything you look for. You draw up a center on a prototype.
In this day and age, as centers keep getting bigger, the days of the Scott Wellses, no offense to Scott, but he was a much smaller guy, a Pro Bowl center in his own right, but that's not what centers look like anymore.
No, they look like Josh Myers, who could be a freaking tackle. The kid is so tall. But they got put in a real difficult spot because Corey Linsley's gone. He's been the center now for all of basically a half a season in his last 7 years in Green Bay. Lucas Patrick had signed that really quietly, had signed that extension at the end of the 19 season that took him through his first year of unrestricted free agency. And he had learned center, this position he did not play in college, learned it, developed it, and the Packers had to use him there for 10 games. The reason Green Bay was able to get on this run late in the season, a lot of it had to do with how Lucas Patrick had settled in there. Aaron Rodgers paid him the ultimate compliment, saying that this guy can be a legitimate, solid center in the National Football League. And when time came for Myers to come back, Lucas took his lunch pail and he went back to right guard. That's where he finished the season. I don't know what happens with Lucas Patrick this offseason. He'll be an unrestricted free agent, but what he has given this team, it was a great story. Tryout guy, didn't get any undrafted contracts. He had to earn everything he got in Green Bay. The guy's leaving Green Bay as a bona fide NFL football player.
Yeah.
And I hope he gets compensated accordingly. But for them to put that much of an investment in center, Mike, again, this is a position for a number of years. The Packers were using undrafted free agents. They were using Jeff Saturday. I mean, late round picks. God bless, Scott Wells, but he was a 7th rounder.
Right.
This is pretty much their highest draft pick they'd put into that position in years.
Oh yeah, long time.
And then they lose Myers, and it has to be Patrick, and Patrick did the job fast. An incredible season, I thought, for a guy that doesn't get enough credit.
Yeah, I agree with you. Lucas Patrick was my pick on offense. On defense, yeah, you stole one from me there. I knew it would happen. That's okay. I'm having a hard time picking between two guys on defense, so I'm going to talk a little bit about both of them. The first one is Adrian Amos, and it may sound kind of strange to say, oh, this guy was one of the defensive captains. How can he be an unsung hero? But he didn't have some, monster year statistically. He didn't get a whole lot of recognition of anything in terms of Pro Bowl or All-Pro or any of that kind of stuff. But some of the things that we've already talked about here recently, a rookie cornerback in Eric Stokes. You're dealing with Jair Alexander's injury, Rasul Douglas, a new guy coming into the secondary. Adrian Amos was kind of that glue guy in the defensive backfield that held everything together, right? He was a veteran guy. He knows what he's doing. He's respected. All those guys look up to him. He could answer all their questions. I'm sure, to be a fly on the wall in the defensive back meeting room when they're going over film and stuff like that, I think would give us even more insight into the kind of guy that Adrian Amos is. So he's one of the guys I wanted to mention in this category. The other one also on the defensive side I'm going to say is Dean Lowry.
Sure.
Because for years we've been saying, the Packers need that tandem guy, that guy to pair with Kenny Clark, right? And Dean Lowry's been a very solid player for the Packers since he was drafted in the 4th round here in 2016. I thought this season, after a little bit of a slow start, when Dean Lowry started to come on this year, he maintained that level of play like the rest of the way. He became a very, very, not just the guy lined up next to Kenny Clark. He became a very strong complementary piece there in the defensive line next to Kenny Clark. And I really thought Lowry's impact on a steady, consistent basis was the best it's been in his career to this point.
Yeah, and he looked bigger, stronger, everything. I mean, he checked all the boxes. He set career highs across the board.
He's a strong dude, man. I mean, Kenny Clark is strong. Like, don't get me wrong, but Kenny would always say he has to remind Dean how strong he is. Like, hey, just bull rush the guy. You don't need to pussyfoot around, so to speak. Like, go after him because your strength will get the job done. And when you look at the film, Dean Lowry was able to use that strength in a lot of positive ways.
That 16 draft, man, I don't think I think to me it goes down as one of the more underrated ones that Ted Thompson had, because 15 did not go well. Nobody's going to sit here and say that the 15 draft was a world beater by any means. But 16, I think, is a big reason why Green Bay was able to get this thing back on the tracks in 19 and be able to, start to build something here on defense. Certainly it was Blake Martinez for a time until that torch was passed now to Devondre Campbell. But for a defensive tackle that's a first-round pick like Kenny Clark, who's, by the way, at the end of the first round, there's no gimmies at the end of the first round. Kenny could have not worked out at that spot.
Yeah.
But to hit on him and then also find Dean in the fourth round as a comp pick, those two, to have two guys play together for 6 years, and they're both under contract for next year, that doesn't happen in the National Football League a lot. And they're the leaders there, the longest tenured members of the defense. And certainly when you talk about guys that I think probably deserve to have more respect put on their name, Dean Lowry definitely is on top of that list.
Yeah, I like those picks there. Lucas Patrick, Dean Lowry, Adrian Amos getting some run in the unsung.
We should have little awards that we give out to these guys.
Yeah, we have to little trophies or something. We'll slide them forward.
The
All right,
Unscripties.
last one, and we're going a little bit long today, but that's okay. It's our last show for a while.
I'm not doing another one.
So hang with us, Marv. Marv's our producer, as you all know. All right, last one before we get to championship weekend here.
I'll go
craziest thing you saw this season?
The craziest thing I saw this year? Is it the Packers?
You can take it
because
whatever
otherwise
direction.
It's probably Stephon Diggs leveling that fan last week. That was pretty crazy. The craziest thing I saw this year from the Green Bay Packers. While I try to think of a better answer, I'm going to say the injuries. Because last year, one of the reasons why when they lost to the Buccaneers, that it was so difficult is it's like, well, they're not going to have a healthy year like that again. I mean, they were just, nothing went wrong.
Yeah.
And then this year,
missing one key guy there in the playoffs last year, obviously in Bakhtiari, but the rest of the team was basically healthy. This year, absolutely, completely different.
This year,
story.
nothing went right.
Oh my gosh!
Everyone was injured.
Unbelievable.
To lose Za'Darius, to lose Jair in the first month of the season, and basically have them miss the rest of the regular season and get them back for the playoff game.
And then losing some guys here and there to COVID positive tests and all that too. That got thrown in on top of all your regular injuries that can happen in the course of an NFL season.
So the injuries are one thing. I'll tell you what it was, though, now that I got a little bit more time to think about it. It was Kirk Cousins completing the pass to Garrett Bradbury. That was the craziest thing I saw this year.
Good one.
Adrian Amos levels the tight end there. I forget which one that was. The ball gets popped up. And
it was a Conklin, I think.
Yeah, it was Ty Conklin.
Yeah, Ty Conklin.
It was their tight end.
Yeah. Good pick, though. I like that. Yeah, that was nuts.
Because everybody's staring at it like, what just happened?
That was wild. It was the the Immaculate Reception Part 2, except it wasn't Terry Bradshaw and Franco Harris. It was Kirk Cousins and Garrett Bradbury.
And I forgot which reporter asked Amos about it, but Amos lays this big old hit on Ty Conklin.
Big time hit.
You think clean hit, but you think the play's over, and then here's this 300-pound offensive charging at you with the football. That was the craziest thing I saw.
Yeah, my pick is the ending to the Cincinnati game.
Yeah, that was nuts.
all of the missed field goals back and forth by both teams and multiple. I have never watched a game that had that many walk-off opportunities that were missed before before a walk-off opportunity then was good, and they actually did walk off the field finally. Like that, I mean, and it was something about in terms of the number of go-ahead or game-winning missed field goals within a certain amount of time in the fourth quarter, overtime, whatever. It did set a record. Like it was not the type of game that had ever happened before, and I don't think we're ever going to see another one like that. That was absolutely insane.
No, and actually that was also a thing that told me that Evan McPherson's probably going to be a pretty good kicker in this league, because you would have thought that, oh my gosh, this poor kid misses this kick.
Yeah, Crosby then finally makes the kick at the end, and Evan McPherson's not just, sitting on the bench, like staring off into space, wondering like, oh my gosh, how did I cost? I mean, he's, as you said, he's going out there kind of joking around with Crosby, like what just happened out there?
That told me that kid's confident, and certainly ended up being the PFWA Rookie of the Year in that.
And he drilled the walk-off game winner to get the Bengals into the AFC Championship with that win over the Tennessee Titans, which we're going to get to those championship games in a moment, but a shout-out to our sponsors. SiriusXM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. And at Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, we believe in better.
Let's give some credit to Sirius Cousins. We've been doing these reads all year long. That's what keeps us having paychecks.
Absolutely.
And also, I did happen to get a gift card this year to Cousins that I haven't used yet. So I think there's some shakes in my future here once it's not negative 15 degrees outside.
And I would say that that you should take me out for a sandwich, except everybody knows that I steal your sandwiches all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then Marv said I should take him as well, too.
There we
go.
Yeah,
we're even. You're good.
All right. Championship weekend here, Wes. Cincinnati at Kansas City. San Francisco at the LA Rams. Although what I'm hearing is there are reports based on secondary market ticket activity that they're looking at potentially 2/3 of SoFi Stadium being San Francisco fans on Sunday for the NFC Championship. That's sort of what's been leaking out. We'll see if that actually happens. But anyway.
What was the worst idea, Mike? Let's put you on the spot here. What was the worst idea? 17 regular season games or putting 2 teams in LA?
I thought you were going to say putting 1 team in LA or putting 2 teams in LA. Like, what was the worst idea? I mean, Sean McVay pleading with the Rams fans not to sell their tickets because he knows that the 49ers fans are going to overrun. It's really not going to be a home game for the LA Rams, with the exception of really being in their home locker room probably,
it's way too close to
and not having to get on an airplane. Yeah. But
what was the question?
How do you see these games playing? Who do you think will be playing in the Super Bowl out of those 4 teams?
I think Kansas City's winning it. So that makes it so that I believe that they're going to beat the Cincinnati Bengals.
Okay.
Do I have a coin? I don't have a coin.
You're going to flip?
I was just going to
flip for that NFC, the third meeting in the NFC West between the Niners and the Rams.
I'm going to go the Rams just because I'm not saying it's going to be because of the fans, but it's really difficult to beat good teams 3 times in the same season.
It is.
That's a tall task for San Francisco to actually be able to do that. I saw that stat already that they're the first team in NFL history now to close the season with 3 straight wins over teams with at least 12 victories. I learned that from the internet. So to make that the 4th, to go Rams, Dallas, Packers, Rams again, that's something else.
Yeah.
If they do it, they're nobody's underdog in the Super Bowl. But
no doubt.
I just feel like the Rams caught on to something, man. I feel like Matthew Stafford is in one of those rhythms right now. They got to clean up their run game. They have to minimize the mistakes. But defensively, they can stop San Francisco. So can they get the points that they need?
I agree with you. I think it's going to be Kansas City against Los Angeles. We're going to get a rematch of that highest scoring Monday Night Football game ever from a few years ago. Obviously, it will be with a different Rams quarterback now that Matthew Stafford is there instead of Jared Goff. But it seems like that's where this is headed. But who the heck knows, right? I mean, but what is exciting, I'm interested to see how Stafford does because, as I mentioned before, he finished the regular season in a bad rut of turning the ball over. And obviously he enters the postseason with a ton of pressure on him as a quarterback who's never a veteran quarterback and very accomplished quarterback who's never won a postseason game before. He gets that monkey off his back against Arizona. The Cardinals did not play well. He wins that. Then he puts together a really, really tremendous performance against Tampa Bay on the road last week, and then survives and makes the big plays at the end to make up for all of his teammates fumbling the ball all over the place. And now suddenly it seems like all of the whole narrative about Matthew Stafford and the pressure on him and everything, he's in a different place now heading into this game. It just feels like, and I'm very curious to see if he can take this to the finish line, which is what the Rams got him for. And you mentioned the Rams defense too. Von Miller, when the Rams played here at Lambeau, Von Miller had fairly recently joined their roster, and I believe was kind of dealing with an ankle injury. Watching the Packers offensive film, Rams defensive film from that game, Von Miller was a complete non-factor really in that game against the Packers. Von Miller is a big-time factor. He's back to looking like the old Von Miller now, and him being added to what was already a pretty good Rams defense. I think the Rams are in pretty good position to pull this off.
And if Aaron Donald keeps his hands off of the opposing offensive lineman's head and neck area, I like the Los Angeles Rams' chances here down the stretch. Listen, man, we talk about being all in. I don't believe in it, but the Rams are all in. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
They're on their, they didn't take out a second mortgage. They took out a third one on this thing. So they got to win. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, we just set the record, I believe, for the longest unscripted episode in our
longer if you want.
6 years of, was it 5 years or 6 years
we've done this for 6 years.
6 years
Feels
now?
like 7.
I can't even keep track anymore. But with that, we are going to call it a wrap on this edition of Packers Unscripted. We will be back at some point during the off season on a whim. Who knows? Just stay tuned to Packers.com, where we have all the coverage of your favorite team, the Green Bay Packers. It's all there for you. For Wes, I'm Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody, and for tuning in all season long. We will see you next time.